Hey everyone, this is Chris, and you're listening to /watching One Cross Radio. And today we are rejoined by nobody. It's just me. And it took me about 5 or 6 takes to get this intro. I'm very tired, so I'm just slurring words and tripping over them all together. It's bonkers. So today's episode is one I talked about in the last episode and I said it was coming when we did the favorite things from the Star Wars Expanded Universe episode. And it is a short review of the last 4 movies that I've seen up until this point. Another upcoming episode soon will feature the 5th one, and it will be a review of Spider-Man Far From Home with our good friend, awesome pal, and great dad, Pastor Steve Lambert. So that'll be coming up soon. Before we get into the episode proper, I just wanted to give 2 specific shout outs to some great podcasts that I listen to. One is the Pull List, featuring our dear friend, Pastor Hector Mirai, and who has recently been on DC's Swamp Thing, and I believe Pastor Chris Poirier. They do this podcast with the Love Thy Nerd Network. Love Thy Nerd is great by itself, and it's awesome to check out. But the Pull List in particular has become one of my go-to podcasts for all things nerdy, and especially going into a faith-based twist at specific times. I'm not able to stay up to date with current comics, and a good chunk of the episode is looking at current comic book movie news, or show news, and also like what they're reading and why they like it. It's a really, really good podcast. Highly recommend check them out. You can find them most places podcasts are. I get them through Podbean because Podbean is who I use to distribute, and I find it's easy for me to just find podcasts on there. The second shout out is another podcast that you can find on Podbean, but also iTunes and most other places. And it's one I've mentioned before. It's Hot Takes with Billy Business. Billy is most well known for being involved in Screen Junkies, now Fandom Entertainment. The podcast is really, really good. This morning I was listening to a very interesting episode that he and Ed Greer recorded on the 30th anniversary of Batman 1989. And it's less movie fights, which is a program they do on Fandom Entertainment, formerly Screen Junkies. Whereas instead, I've mentioned before, the name is kind of a joke. It's hot takes, but it's not like people just dishing out hot takes and ripping on a movie. It's very like good, fair discussion with people coming from 2 different viewpoints. It's a really good podcast. So if you like hearing about movies and people's opinions on them, check that one out. Note with that one, occasionally there is some language if that's something that bothers you. It was really funny in the Batman one. There were certain points where Ed was swearing and they were bleeping it out, but then there were certain sections where I guess it was just Ed was talking too fast and you couldn't. So that made me chuckle. That's not an indictment against the podcast. It's a really good podcast. So if you like podcasts about movies and movie opinions, definitely check them out, and definitely be sure to check out the Pull List. It's a really solid podcast. All right, so now into the episode proper. I mentioned when I did the Star Wars EU episode that Jill and I recently had been able to go see 4 movies, and I love seeing movies, especially with her. It's like a date, and dates with your spouse are awesome. Go on them. But we both really like film, and there's been a lot of movies coming out lately that we want to see. Still haven't seen Toy Story 4, and I'd love to, but I'm making my peace with that I might not get to. If it's between that and Spider-Man, I'm probably going to end up seeing Spider-Man. Don't get me wrong. I love me some Toy Story, but you got to be at times choosy with your budget. And as much as I love Toy Story, I'm definitely going to hit that one on DVD. Spider-Man, the Marvel movies are like must see in theaters for me, basically. I also didn't get to see Detective Pikachu. I missed it by 1 week. So, anyways, back to the. While we out of getting to see movies, we've seen 4 kind of big ones in particular, and I'm going to go over these, and I'll admit shortly because I will ramble and I'll repeat. So I'm trying to cut off those opportunities. I'm going to go in these from worst to best, or in some aspects, worst / most disappointing to best / most enjoyable. And if you ask me, when I heard these movies coming out and we got to May, where these 4 in quick succession were kicking off, I did not know the list would be like this. I was hoping it'd be different. All right, so to kick it off, the worst, or in this case, most disappointing one, is definitely X-Men Dark Phoenix. There's not really much I liked about it. I wanted to like more about it. I would have liked X-Men to go out on a better note. Hector Mirai, through Faith and Fandom and another podcast that he does, I just can't remember the name. It's Through Love Thy Nerd. I'll attach the link in the description. It's like a bullet point podcast. It might be the hit list or something. No, that can't be right. Anyways, he had been talking about how with this X-Men movie, it's difficult, borderline for fans to get excited about it, because we know it's the last one before New Mutants, which at this point, who knows when or if that thing is ever coming out, because they keep pushing back the date. Yeah, it's difficult to get excited about it. It's retreading the Dark Phoenix and not doing it well again. And the last movie wasn't Apocalypse wasn't that good. It wasn't as well received. So it's not like there was a lot of strong things coming in. By the way, the name of the podcast is Critical Hit. They're short, like 3 to 4 minute episodes. Check them out as well. So it had a bad opening weekend. Word of mouth definitely did not help. So when Jill and I saw it, I wanted to be more excited about it. I went in with low expectations. And before I saw it, one of the funniest review titles I saw, or not funniest, just like a good burn, was it makes The Last Stand more watchable or better in comparison, which I don't know if I'd go that far. But ultimately, for me, this movie is a lesson of what not to do. You can't do the Dark Phoenix story in a single film. Also, the marketing was really stupid for this movie. It had, like, the trailers featured friggin' Jennifer Lawrence, Mystique, who's not really Mystique at this point, like, featured Mystique getting killed. And then they confirmed it before the movie, which it would have been a nice surprise in the movie if you didn't know that was coming. But they made it a prominent point. And then they out now said, no, she died. She did, which was really dumb. The performances were good. Like, you'll always give it that. Michael Fassbender, especially as Magneto, I'm going to miss him as Magneto. In this one, he definitely had the least to do, which was a real disappointment. Friggin' McAvoy, sorry. James McAvoy is always good as Xavier. But this I liked because it shined a bit on Charles being a jerk. Because in the comics, Charles is a bit of a jerk. The outside of The Last Stand, and then it was just sudden and not really done well. They always look at Charles being like virtuous, and he's an example, and he's so good, and he's a paragon of virtue, and blah blah blah. And no, he's a dick at points. Sorry for the language. It's just he's a jerk. So I really like that this movie didn't shy away from that. They tried to explain it, they tried to justify it, but it made sense. It worked. And the brief spots on Genosha were cool. Sophie Turner's performance was good. Everybody did a good job, but it was not a good movie. Like the story was kind of flat. At one point, they had Nightcrawler go on a murder spree, which is not Nightcrawler. That's not Nightcrawler at all. And they just had him killing dudes left and right, which was just really, really iffy. Like if it had happened early in the movie, I would have been like, I want to go, because that's not that character. I know some people were annoyed in Endgame when Spider-Man activated the instant kill mode, but those things didn't have a conscience. They were basically zombies. They were mindless. It's not the same. Whereas Nightcrawler is like the swashbuckling hero. He's a friggin' Catholic priest in the comics. He doesn't just kill willy-nilly unless we're talking Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler, which is his own different character. Yeah, the movie fell very, very flat for me. There was not really much that I cared for in the flick. At this point, like towards the end, I was just like, I just want these characters to be at Marvel, and hopefully Marvel will get a home run with these characters. Because you can't do this story just in one movie. They've tried twice now, so at this point, it's either like do it right in a third time, or you've struck out. Never, ever, friggin' ever try to do this again. Yeah, you can't do the movie in one. You can't do Dark Phoenix in one. It takes a while. It should at least be a 2, if not 3 movie deal, because you need Jean, then you need the Phoenix Force, and then you need the Dark Phoenix. Just it's too much for one. Yeah, it fell really flat. It's not the worst X-Men movie. I've read some people saying that, and it's not even close to the worst X-Men movie. I'd put it on par or slightly below Apocalypse, but it's not The Last Stand bad. The Last Stand is still much more disappointing to me because it messes up Angel the first time and wastes so many other people, and that movie has no idea what it is. It's like 4 different stories and none get time. And it's not as bad as friggin' X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is probably the worst X-Men movie. So that was the most disappointing. Next it's still, I'd put it in the blah category. It's not most disappointing, but out of these 4, it's the one I enjoyed the second least. Men in Black International. The funniest title I read was Meh in Black, and that describes the movie perfectly. When I saw the trailers, I was like, okay, I figured out Liam Neeson's going to be the bad guy. 10 seconds into the flick, Jill realized that Liam Neeson was going to be the bad guy. I don't know how much more mileage there is out of this franchise, to be honest, because it's always aliens, the world's in danger. Aliens, the world's in danger. They haven't reduced the scale. I mean, Men in Black 3 tried to get a little more personal, which right on. I'd put this still above Men in Black 2. Men in Black 2 is just awful, except for the friggin' awesome Nod Your Head song by Will Smith. But this one still has to me, it's very flat. None of the characters have any kind of arc, which is difficult to get behind. Tessa Thompson's character, like there's stuff there that's ripe to go in depth to and look at a character, but they don't really do it. She starts off smart, capable, determined. she ends smart, capable, and determined. Like, there's stuff in the movie where, like, the whole thing is she knows about Men in Black. She's trying to find them. But once she finds them, nothing changes with her character. And there's also no, like, adjustment on the field. There's nothing. She doesn't ever freak out. She doesn't ever, like, have a moment where she questions herself. Nothing. Like, it's just, she's the exact same character the whole way through. Chris Hemsworth, same thing. Except at one point, you find out, like, he had been neuralized, but still, like, they didn't lean in. They didn't go into anything where he's, like, doubting himself, which he should have been. It's just like, no, he's overconfident, and he's great and cocky and flawed. But they don't ever really dive into any of that. It's just they're the exact same characters the entire way through. Nothing on an emotional level changes. And that's not as fun to watch. There's some good action. I'll give it that. There's some decent callbacks. I'll give it that. But it's a very flat movie. It's not good. It's all right. It's not terrible, but yeah, it's hard to describe because it's very forgettable, because there's no real stakes for these characters, because you don't like I said, they don't grow. It relies on, like, and Hemsworth, who I dig a lot. It's the most way I can liken it to is Thor Ragnarok. He's very, it's plays his comedy, but he also does some good acting, because not saying comedy's not acting, not saying that at all. But when he's in the comedy, you get that sarcastic tone, you get everything, but there's also some good scenes where he does apply some drama. You get that in friggin' Avengers Infinity War, and to a lesser extent in Endgame. But when people talk about Thor in Endgame, where it's just that sarcastic whatever, and Ragnarok, Men in Black International is that, but the entire movie. There's no real drama point. And that's disappointing for me. I like Hemsworth as an actor. I'm not as big on just jokey Hemsworth as everybody else is. Don't get me wrong. He's got comedic chops and he's very entertaining. But when it's that one note for an entire performance, it's not the funnest note. Not everybody's Jim Carrey, because Jim Carrey's one note is really like 45. Or the late, great Robin Williams, same thing. All right, we're back. So the second best movie, if you would ask me at the beginning of the summer if I thought that this would be the second best out of these four that I saw, I would have thought you're nuts. I was ready to think this movie was terrible. The trailers did it no real favors. But to give credit where it's due, Aladdin was actually pretty good. To be blunt, the guy, I hated Jafar. Hated him. The marketing did no favors to that, but then the actual movie did no favors to it. Jafar, out of the original, is one of my favorite villains. He's very much a mustache twirling villain. He's evil for evil's sake. And then Jim Cummings gave him, I believe it was Jim Cummings, gave him this awesome, sinister voice. And then in this movie, it's just this like emo 14-year-old version of Jafar, like, bring me the lamp. There's nothing threatening about this dude. Nothing. I get what they tried to do. They tried to give him a more realistic backstory. They tried to give him this stuff, but to me, it didn't work. I was not invested in him at all. I don't know if it was the performance or the guy doing the best with what he was given, but Jafar was the weakest point of the movie. Will Smith, on the other hand, was one of the stronger parts of the movie, which, again, when those first images came out of him being the big blue genie, you were like, oh, this looks bad. And I think it took him a little bit of time to find himself, because you are never going to be Robin Williams. And to give him credit, outside of 1 point or 2 points, he never tried to emulate Robin. He was very much trying to put his own spin on it while still honoring what came before from the classic portrayal from Robin Williams. The best parts about Genie were when he was in his more human-looking form, where it was just like looking like Will Smith. They also added something that was never there before, where Jasmine had a handmaiden, and there's a love between, there's a whole love bit between Genie and her. It's done really, really well. It leads to a lot of comedy. The high point of the movie for me might have been, there's this scene where Aladdin's trying to, as Prince Ali, impress Jasmine, and then Genie is basically string puppeting him, but without this. Listener, you can't see, but I just did my hands where you do the thing with the friggin' puppets. And he's making Aladdin dance, and just watching, the kid playing Aladdin, I can't remember his name, did a great job. The lady playing Jasmine did a great job. She also played Kimberly in the 2017 Power Rangers movie. She did great. But that scene in particular, everybody was doing really, really well. But that's where you got the real shot of the Will Smith charm and what he's putting into Genie. That scene was great, and the movie really surprised me. I did not I went in expecting to hate it, because I love the original. I love the original somewhat. I did not, and what else? And yeah, I didn't care for Beauty and the Beast all that much, so I'm like, Beauty and the Beast I freaking loved, so the last one disappointed me. I'm like, all right, go in. Don't expect to love it. Not expect to be disappointed, but just have low expectations. And it ended up really, really friggin' surprising me. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. The songs were great. There was a new original song that was really good. And the different takes on the songs were also really good. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a fair bit, a lot more than I thought I would. All right. So as of this recording, the funnest movie I've seen, not funniest, the funnest and best movie I've seen since Endgame is hands down Godzilla King of the Monsters. Godzilla King of the Monsters, to me, was outstanding. It is not a perfect film by any means. It does have some story structure flaws. It does have an abundance of human characters. But the thing is, as much as I love Godzilla movies, you almost need the human characters, and it works a lot. They work a lot better than, say, the characters did in a number of the Toho Godzilla movies, and also especially the anime Godzilla trilogy, which was not, to me, not that good. The characters really do work. There are some things that fall flat. Yeah, there are some things that fall flat, but I can't actually focus on them. The things that are really good are one, the score. The score was outstanding. I can't remember the composer's name, so I do apologize for that. But he did a tremendous job of adding to the music and incorporating Japanese themes. At one point, you get the classic Akira Ifukube. I'm mispronouncing his name. I'm butchering it, so I apologize. But he incorporates the classic Godzilla theme, which Jill at one point had to grab my hand because when I heard it, I was like, "Yee!" He at the end of the movie, he incorporates the Mothra theme, which I didn't see coming. Which also I was like, "Yee! This is awesome!" There's so much good in this movie to me. Like, that's the thing. I recognize that they're flaws, but I also don't care. I enjoy it too much. It's I don't want to say harmless fun or brainless fun, but it's a fun monster romp. Friggin' when I saw some of the comments afterwards, some reviewers, it was in 2014's Godzilla. A lot of critics and criticisms were like, there's not enough monster action. Godzilla's barely in this. And then in this one, there's too much monster action, not enough human story stuff. And it's like, did you watch the trailer? Do you know what this movie's supposed to be? It's a friggin' monster romp, son. And it was a tremendous monster romp. Ghidorah. Oh my gosh. I've been so excited to see King Ghidorah on the big screen, especially since they said it was happening at the end of Kong Skull Island. I've just been like so excited because he is Godzilla's big bad. Destoroyah is like number 2 or almost tied with number 1. But when you think of Godzilla villains, you think of King Ghidorah / Ghidorah. Rodan looks great, and Mothra looks great. Mothra, unfortunately, was not in as much as I'd like, but the thing was, they made all these monsters have personalities. Rodan wakes up angry and sees Ghidorah coming, and friggin' Ghidorah and Rodan throw down, and Rodan stands no chance against Ghidorah. So then after Ghidorah kicks the crap out of him, Rodan's subservient. Mothra and Godzilla have a kinship they show, which is a nice throwback to the Japanese films where they were adversaries, but they were also friends. And Mothra and Rodan throw down. Mothra and Ghidorah throw down, and Mothra dies because that's borderline what Mothra does. But then Mothra helps Godzilla, like even in death, helps Godzilla overcome Ghidorah. And an almost nice throwback to friggin' Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, where Rodan kind of gets shot down, and then Godzilla absorbs Rodan's essence because Heisei Godzilla movies. And then that gives Godzilla his spiral ray. And this movie has so many references and lifts from plots from various different Godzilla movies across the ages, from the Heisei, from the Showa period as well. Not so much from the Millennium, and that's okay. Godzilla is on the verge of burning down, having a meltdown, which is lifted from Godzilla versus Destoroyah, which ended the Heisei period. The Oxygen Destroyer makes an appearance, which was great, and a nice throwback to the 54 original Gojira, because that's what kills him. And then also it's what creates Destoroyah, so you're tying it into 2 different movies, kind of. There's a lot of references to Skull Island. You never see Kong, but there's references to Skull Island, which was great because it ties it in even more. And it helps set up next year's Godzilla versus Kong, which I'm really pumped for. Yeah, there's so much good here. So much good. The monster action is easily the best part. The cast all do a great job. Yeah, I don't have really any complaints. Like I said, I recognize the flaws, but I also don't care. It's a fun movie. It was a fun monster romp. It was not like I had sky high expectations, but it was better than what I was expecting. Man, yeah, it was awesome. Here's and it's a nitpick, but it's not really a complaint. At one point, when Godzilla is actually no. Here's a couple of more things. Sorry. Actually, I'll do the nitpick, but then I'll add the other things I liked. The nitpick is I was with knowing and loving Godzilla. You know, he's got his regular atomic breath, but then he also has the spiral red variant, which is like his most powerful attack. And when Godzilla was melting down at the end, I was like, oh, snap, we're going to see the Spiral Red. We didn't. He kind of had more of a atomic EMP, and that's what defeated Ghidorah. He was so hot that things around him were melting. Ghidorah couldn't handle it. So it's a nitpick. I would have loved the red heat ray, but I get why they didn't go with it. They went with something a little different, a little more original, and that's fair. That's fine. It's not a legit complaint. That's why I said nitpick. The other things I really liked were that they kept Ghidorah alien. There are certain things from Godzilla where I'm like, you know what? We're never gonna get that explanation. It's just too far out there. It's too old school. It's too different. And I was borderline accepting and expecting them to just be like, Ghidorah is just a monster. With these monsters, they're prehistoric creatures. That's it. That's all there is to it. Ghidorah, they actually go into like, nah, he's an alien. He's not from this planet. He's not local. He's an invasive species. That's why at one point they're looking at some of the stuff Ghidorah is doing, and the main scientist, they're all scientists, but one of the main scientists, he's like, this doesn't make any sense. The laws of physics, the laws of nature do not go with this. This should not be happening because Ghidorah is causing hurricanes. He's causing storms. It's things that should not and technically cannot happen together, happening together. And then that's when you get into the explanation of it was theorized and it is believed like he is not from here. He fell from the sky. So I liked that they kept the alien aspect. Also, towards the end, the other thing I really like with Ghidorah is it seems like there's reason to believe he could come back because early on in the movie they show because Godzilla and Ghidorah square off 3 times. At one point, Godzilla rips off one of Ghidorah's heads and just tosses it aside. And then later in the movie, you see Ghidorah's head regrow. So it shows how regenerative Ghidorah is. At the end of the movie, you find Ghidorah's head, and then the eco-terrorist group is trying to get DNA. So what is possible, though, is the thing that excites me is you might get Ghidorah back because we've seen Ghidorah regrow a head, but can the head grow a new body? So if they ever bring in Ghidorah or Mecha King Ghidorah, that would be an interesting way to go. The MonsterVerse outside of the MCU is the shared universe that is getting it right. So I really, really hope that when the rights kind of go after Godzilla versus Kong, that Toho and Legendary figure out a deal where we can still get these movies, where you can still get Godzilla. I don't want this franchise to end. Part of me wants it to end on a good note, but I would like them to keep going. And I think there's grounds for more, and I'd love to see more of the classic Toho kaiju make an appearance with the benefits of an American budget. So yeah, there you go. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let me know in the comments, what did you think of these movies? Did they surprise you? Did you enjoy them more than I did? Let me know. And the reason I'm spoiling all these is all of these movies have been out for a while now. And by the time this is posted, they'll have been out for even longer. So most of the time I try to go spoiler free for a good at least 2 to 3 weeks, if not a month. At this point, some of these have been out for well over a month. So it's fair game. All that being said, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And please, like I said, be sure to check out the Pull List podcast as well as Hot Takes with Billy Business. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful day, and God bless, my friends. Take care. Peace.